welcome to today's deep dive. It's really great to have you with us today. Before we jump in, I just want to give a quick reminder to you to hit that like button and subscribe to the show.
Yeah, please do.
It really helps us out, and it makes sure you never miss out on the deep dives we do here. So today we are looking at an incredibly dense, really polarizing new ebook from 2025.
Extremely polar.
Right, totally. It's called Historyless Zoomers, Cut Off from Their Cultural Heritage by Satanic Marxism, Feminism, and Postmodernity. And it is by Conrad Riker. Now, right up front, if you want to grab a copy for yourself, you can find it over on Amazon Kindle and Google Play Books.
And, this text is a massive talking point right now, especially for a men's rights activists audience.
Absolutely.
It is hugely popular with red-pilled manosphere men who are really focused on understanding the history of our institutions before they were captured by feminists and Marxists, which is how the author frames it.
Right. And because of how charged this text is, I need to make our mission today crystal clear for you, the listener. Our goal here is to impartially unpack the arguments within this book. We are not endorsing these viewpoints. We are not taking any political sides, left or right.
No, we're just analyzing the material.
Exactly. We're just acting as your guides to convey the author's ideas so you can fully understand this specific worldview. It's an exploration of a very intense perspective on cultural debates about masculinity today. Okay, let's unpack this. Where exactly does the author start his argument?
So Riker sets the stage with a very aggressive central thesis. He argues that Western civilization is being methodically dismantled from within by what he calls a satanic Marxist hydra.
Hydra. That's a strong word choice.
It is. And he defines this hydra as a very specific fusion of three things: postmodernism, radical feminism, and critical theory. And according to the book, this alliance isn't just trying to change policies. He claims it is systematically targeting male identity, patrilineal lineage, and historical heritage to basically capture institutions. We're talking schools, media, HR departments, and the courts.
Wait, before we get into the examples, let's make sure we define our terms so we have a solid baseline here. When he says postmodernism or critical theory, what exactly is he targeting? Because, those are really dense academic frameworks.
Yeah, that's a crucial distinction to make early on. In Riker's framework, he interprets postmodernism as the rejection of objective truth, the idea that there are no universal facts, only narratives competing for power.
Right.
And then for radical feminism, he's referring to the ideology that views all of society as a patriarchy that has to be dismantled. And critical theory, as he applies it, is the practice of analyzing every interaction strictly through an oppressor versus oppressed lens.
So you're saying when you combine those three,
you get an ideological machine. A machine designed to turn young men specifically into compliant subjects by completely erasing their past.
Okay, that definitely clarifies his lens. So how does he claim this erasure is actually happening in the real world?
Well, he focuses heavily on what he calls the great forgetting in our educational systems.
Yeah.
He has these vivid examples. Like, he cites a viral TikTok video where college freshmen were asked about Julius Caesar.
Oh, I think I know this one.
Yeah, only 37% of the respondents knew he was a Roman emperor. The rest were confused, and some genuinely asked if he was a drag queen.
Which is just a wild statistic. But does he view that as a failure of modern education, or is he saying it's more malicious than that?
Oh, he absolutely views it as engineered. He brings up a 2022 example from the University of Texas. According to the book, the university removed busts of founding fathers like Washington, Jefferson, Madison from the history department.
And what do they replace them with?
Abstract concrete sculptures. And they were titled Decolonizing Time and Queer Temporality. He also points to schools in Canada that are altering foundational historical documents to use gender-neutral pronouns like they and them for historical figures.
Okay, but let's play devil's advocate for a second. Is replacing a statue or updating the language in a curriculum really ideological arson, which is his term for it? Or is that just an exaggerated way of describing a curriculum that's just trying to be more inclusive?
What's fascinating here is the psychological mechanism Riker believes is at play. He doesn't view this as a simple effort to be inclusive. He argues that the deliberate removal of historical heroes is meant to specifically sever young men from their cultural roots.
Right, to cut them off.
Yes. His argument is you cannot inspire courage or a sense of building the future in a young man if you explicitly teach him that his ancestors were exclusively villains.
Ah, so it's the psychological impact of having no inherited legacy to look up to. He actually uses this phrase that identity without roots is a ghost in the machine. It really makes you think about how understanding history shapes your personal identity.
Precisely. And Riker cites a 2024 Pew Research study claiming 68% of men under 30 feel no connection to their ancestors, compared to just 22% of men over 60.
That is a massive generational gap.
It is, and for Riker, this chasm is the direct result of schools stopping the teaching of history as a factual record, and instead teaching it as a tool of white male domination. The result, he claims, is a generation of boys taught to feel guilt for their heritage.
Rather than a duty to their future. That makes sense within his framework. And this idea of erasing history naturally bleeds into his next target. Here's where it gets really interesting, because the author pivots from historical figures to the manipulation of language itself.
Yeah, language is central to how he thinks this hydra operates. Remember the postmodernism definition. If objective reality doesn't exist and reality is just power structures maintained by language, then to change reality, you have to destroy the existing language.
Right, and he pulls some incredibly striking examples from around the world to back this up. He spends a lot of time on naming conventions, right?
So he shares an anecdote about a 2022 TED Talk given by a Harvard linguist. This linguist declares that the word man is completely obsolete, that it is outdated and rooted in patriarchal violence. And Riker writes about pausing that video, looking at his own young son playing on the floor and realizing his son's very existence was being linguistically erased by academia.
He also mentions a really specific court case in Sweden that caught my eye.
The 2023 Swedish court ruling, yeah. A child couldn't be named Muhammad because the court deemed it too common among immigrants and said it carried too much cultural identity.
But then the exact same court
Allowed the name Kim specifically because it was gender neutral. Riker pairs this with the Swedish education agency promoting a guide called Gender Neutral, Naming for the Future, which frames traditional names like Eric or Carl as carrying patriarchal baggage.
So he's arguing that by controlling the words we use, institutions are trying to control how we conceptualize ourselves.
Exactly. And this connects perfectly to Riker's argument about a deliberate assault on the trivium.
The trivium, let's define that.
Right. The trivium consists of grammar, logic, and rhetoric, the three classical pillars of Western education. Grammar structures, language, logic structures, thought, and rhetoric defends truth in public. Riker claims all three are under systematic attack.
Right. I remember the part where he talks about France, the national education system demanding inclusive writing where words are visually chopped up with dots and slashes. Riker doesn't call this reform. He calls it linguistic castration.
He does. And the data he brings in regarding higher education is meant to show how deep this goes. He cites a 2022 Stanford study finding 78% of humanities departments actively discourage citing pre-1950 Western texts.
We were talking Homer, Newton, Locke.
Exactly, because the prevailing ideology labels them as patriarchal myths or colonial artifacts.
But if you remove those texts and manipulate grammar, what takes its place?
He argues that institutions are destroying the tools young men need for objective truth and reasoned debate. If logic is framed as a masculine obsession with hierarchy, which is a quote he pulls from the National Women's Studies Association, then reason itself is abolished.
And replaced with emotional compliance and repeating slogans. It's a rewiring of how people think. But the book doesn't just stay in linguistics. It gets incredibly personal, especially in the chapters on the pathologization of fatherhood and lineage.
Those chapters are probably the most emotionally charged in the whole text. Riker outlines his theory on the feminist state complex. He argues modern bureaucratic states formed a quiet alliance with feminist ideology to render biological fathers completely obsolete.
Can you walk us through the story of Lars Jørgensen?
Yeah.
Because that really seemed to be the emotional anchor for this entire section.
Yeah, Lars Jørgensen from Copenhagen in 2019. According to the book, Lars raised his daughter for 6 years, never missed a child support payment, but the mother entered a relationship with a woman and wanted to legally redefine the family unit.
And what happened in court?
In the courtroom, the judge told Lars he had no legal right to his daughter anymore. The judge literally told him parental identity is self-declared. You are no longer a parent. You are an ancestor.
Just an ancestor. That is a chilling phrase. But stepping back, critics might say family court disputes are highly individualized, or statistics just reflect who traditionally takes on childcare. How does he leap from one case to a coordinated feminist state complex?
Riker points to the broader data to say it's systemic. He notes that in the U.S., mothers receive primary custody in 80% of divorce cases, even when fathers are equally fit and employed. Yet men pay 73% of all child support.
So he uses those numbers to claim the family court system weaponizes motherhood.
Yes. In his view, men are treated as disposable biological components. like ATMs with expiration dates. If a man pays, he's a utility. If he protests, he's toxic.
He even quotes a UN brief rate.
A 2020 UN Women Policy Brief that explicitly calls for the deconstruction of patriarchal family structures. He translates this as a top-down effort to eliminate the father and replace him with state dependency.
And what's truly startling is he claims this isn't just targeting existing fathers. He argues there's a cultural effort to make young men feel guilty for even wanting to create life.
He pairs that with a stark anecdote from a Portland high school in 2022. The class was doing a lesson calculating the carbon guilt of their parents for bringing them into the world.
Wow.
A 16-year-old boy raises his hand and asks, "So if my existence is a crime, should I just disappear?" And the teacher reportedly replied, "Ideally, yes."
To frame a young person's existence as a literal burden on the planet, that is heavy.
Riker uses that along with a BBC documentary titled, "Is It Wrong to Have a Baby?" to show how educators are labeling the desire to have children as reproductive narcissism.
For men specifically.
Right. The urge to raise a child and build a legacy is reframed as a moral disorder or a climate crime for men. Meanwhile, he points out women who reject childbirth are culturally celebrated as liberated. The goal, he claims, is to collapse time entirely and sever the chain of meaning linking past to future.
Which brings us to the modern workplace and the social sphere. He spent a whole chapter on the weaponization of shame and the erasure of the male archetype. What is happening there, according to Riker?
He focuses on how quickly shame is deployed to keep men in line. He tells the story of a 27-year-old software engineer in Austin. This guy is in a coffee shop, checks his phone, and glances toward the counter.
Just a glance.
Within 48 hours, his face and address are on 17 different online forums. The caption said this man looked at a woman in a coffee shop and didn't immediately look away. He gets doxed, fired from his job, and his employer gets 83 complaint emails.
That sounds like a terrifying manifestation of internet outrage culture.
Yeah.
But how does Riker scale a viral doxing to a systemic mechanism of control?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, Riker sees this not as isolated outrage, but as an intended feature of the system. He asserts modern institutions have pathologized basic male rationality, branding it as toxic dominance, while elevating female emotional assertion as moral clarity.
Right.
He points to a 2022 Harvard study. Men subjected to repeated privilege audits at work reported significantly higher anxiety and lower performance because they were being trained to believe their biology was a moral injury to coworkers.
So the argument is you don't even need laws against men if you can culturally shame them into silence.
Exactly. Riker argues the ideological left didn't win through superior philosophy, but through the weaponization of shame. Fast, brutal, total shame. The result is young men hyper-monitoring themselves.
They self-censor.
Yeah, he cites a 2023 survey where 61% of male college students admitted to self-censoring in class for fear of being labeled sexist or privileged.
They retreat into silence and abandon public forums.
Yes, they become what Riker calls NPC zombies, programmed to parrot HR-approved words like equity and inclusion, which he argues enforce the exact opposite.
He also points to pop culture and the military erasing traditional male archetypes. The U.S. Army shifting to use service member instead of soldier or warrior, calling it a symbolic castration. A G.I. Joe focused on emotional intelligence instead of combat.
The World Economic Forum pushing empathy over logic as the top leadership trait.
So what does this all mean? If the institutions are completely captured by this Hydra, does he offer a way out?
This raises an important question, and it's where Riker pivots to his blueprint for rebuilding the West. He doesn't believe in violent revolution. He believes in targeted cultural restoration. And he points to Hungary as a counterexample to Western decline.
I remember this part. He talks about a viral video of a Hungarian father teaching his son ancestral blacksmithing, contrasting that powerful hands-on image with Western men just doom scrolling on their phones.
He highlights Hungary because they've actively rejected the ideologies he critiques. They banned gender ideology in schools, reinstated mandatory history lessons on national heroes, and created state-funded father schools.
Where men learn carpentry and first aid.
Yes, and Hungarian data claims 87% of participants report stronger family bonds.
He also mentions lineage labs, where citizens are funded to trace their DNA and restore family crests.
For Riker, this is cultural counterinsurgency, proof that the decline of men is a policy choice that can be reversed.
And his call to arms is very personal. He urges men to stop outsourcing their manhood to institutions that hate them. To reclaim their history, start families, lift weights, tell the truth, and refuse to apologize for their existence. Rebuild the West brick by brick, father by father.
It's a demand for radical self-reliance. Stand firm in your biology and lineage because strong families produce strong men, and strong men resist control.
It is an intense manifesto, and this is why exploring a polarizing text like this is so valuable for you, the listener. Whether you agree or vehemently disagree, this book maps out a worldview that is actively shaping cultural debates about masculinity and institutions today.
Understanding this framework really helps you navigate the broader conversation.
Exactly. Now, as the author explicitly requests if you found these concepts engaging, he asks readers to leave a 5-star review for the book, calling it a tiny act of resistance. You can follow him at Conrad Riker on Substack and Twitter. And you can grab your own copy of Historyless on Amazon Kindle and Google Play Books.
And as we wrap up, it leaves us with one final profound puzzle. We've talked about history being rewritten in classrooms. But what happens when these narratives are hard-coded into generative AI models that answer questions for the next generation? If an algorithm views history exclusively through the lens Riker critiques, does the great forgetting become an automated, permanent feature of our technology?
That is a brilliant and heavy question to walk away with. Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive. We hope we gave you plenty to think about. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you are first in line to catch our next deep dive. Until next time.